Hi, my name is Heather Cosette. Thank you for listening to my presentation about my internship as the composting coordinator at Awareness Ranch. I'm in my last semester getting my Bachelor's of Arts in Sustainability from Arizona State University and the College of Global Futures. Awareness Ranch, where I had my internship, is a small farm in Tucson and a natural building contractor. The farm operation utilizes aquaponics, which is really efficient out here in the desert, to grow herbs, vegetables, and fruit trees that they sell at markets. We have a community and engagement part of our of the operation as well, where we educate people and about trying to make permaculture and sustainable living really accessible and scalable for people. One of the ways that Awareness Ranch works with the community is by composting the waste created from live events. So they've partnered with a local event promoter to reduce the waste from those events. In 2022, they processed about 6,000 pounds worth of waste from 3 different events. In 23, we have 5 events scheduled, 3 of which are happening here at the end of April and the beginning of May. The compost will be used to fertilize the fruit trees and amend the soil out on the ranch, which is really a heavy clay soil, so it's not always the best for growing out there. So the compost will be used to help that. Also, events are willing to pay for this service, so doing this service offers another livelihood and income stream for the ranch. Which, as a small farm, having multiple income streams and livelihoods really creates a more resilient system. The part of my internship was creating more infrastructure, composting infrastructure on the ranch. So we created a compost donut, a vermicomposting bathtub, and then also another additional composting pile inside the garden. The donut is a high volume, cool method of composting that doesn't require a lot of labor, which is optimal to save time for people on the ranch. So with this high volume from these events, we can kind of set it and forget it, really relying on organisms and funguses to help break down the waste. The vermicompost is we're going to use them as fertilizer from the worm castings from the system, as well as the worms seem to be breaking down some of these plates and like to-go containers that are compostable. They seem to be eating those. I put some of those in the bathtub. So that's pretty exciting if they break those down, what we can do with them. So that's kind of a wait and see what happens with that. But we know that we're going to use the castings as fertilizer. We made a separate compost pile for the growing of food just because we're not entirely sure what's going to happen with this festival waste, as it's not a hot system, which is how you would normally kill pathogens. So when we finally deconstruct the donut, we will be testing the soil to see if it's safe for using with food systems, or if it's going to just be as soil amendment around the ranch. But in the interim, we have made another compost pile that we know what's in it and is going to be safe for utilizing food, growing food. We started with a large trailer of trash that was not breaking down. That was coming from the last events. You see all the plates and stuff in there. We created the donut is built with horse fencing. It's a 10-foot circle with a 3-foot center, and it's about 4.5 feet tall. We started with the bottom layer is a bunch of branches, and that creates aeration and the fungal potential, hopefully there. With myself. So we did a lasagna style where we layered after layered the composting, the horse manure, and then a finished compost to activate and feed the pile, and layered it on top of each other, adding moisture as we went. One of the cool things is we got to work with our neighboring farm that they run an equine therapy facility. So composting brought us together, as they have an excessive amount of horse manure, and that is exactly the nitrogen that we needed for our system. So it was a great day to go over there and see their farm and work with them. We used a recycled shade cloth that had been ripped, but it's still really useful for keeping the sun off the pile and retaining the moisture in the pile, which is one of our main concerns composting out here in the desert. We set up, again, auto watering system to make sure that every day there's water being added to the system, and alleviating the work that has to be done by people on the ranch. Then after that, we just leave it and we let it sit for quite a few months, and hoping that that when we open it up, that a lot of those plates will be broken down. But it's kind of a wait and see and an experiment. So we'll see what happens. It looking good though. The next thing that I created with the help of the people on the ranch was a vermicomposting bathtub setup. So we had a bathtub that was from an old job site. So we lifted it up so that we could get the worm tea from the drain. I cut aeration holes in the side with an angle grinder, put a bunch of rocks on the bottom to create drainage, lined it with burlap from a local coffee roaster, and that keeps the worms from escaping, getting into the rocks. They really love cardboard as the bedding, so we ripped up a bunch of cardboard, created a nice little bed for them. The adobe beds had been seeded with worms last year, so I got to harvest a fair amount of worms out of that system to seed the bathtub. Added a bunch more food and bedding on top of them for the new residents, and then we watered them, and that's what we'll have to continue doing to make sure there's moisture. We'll have to feed them a little bit, but again, composting is a lot of waiting, so wait for the system to work, and they'll be producing about really valuable fertilizer. One of the other portions of that I did for the ranch was administrative services and the operations. So got to contribute to a grant, which is exciting. Never got to do that before. So we offered a grant to Cox Communications, and then also a Seeds to Grow grant that focused on supporting small local farmers. Really interfacing with event organizers to coordinate what their needs were and their budgets, really starting to understand that, and constructed frameworks and forms for the ranch to use, like a quote sheet, a material pull sheet, and then also a staffing schedule. This is Bindi, who is my composting assistant. The learning outcomes, really, I learned, I got to become a part of my community in the sustainability community Tucson, and got to utilize my passions and my time to do something I'm really passionate about, which is reducing our waste through composting. Really learned about how the different challenges in the desert and how that's different from other parts of the country, and some of the information that's out there. Also just realized how stressful it is to run a small farm, and how we all should be supporting our local agriculture, and with our money and support, because they're doing really hard work, but really trying to do the good work. Uh, I have I've helped start conversations with local event promoters to reduce waits at the events, and having them understand what that takes. It's a lot of labor, and that means a lot of costs, which can be hard, but people are understanding that this is something that they need to pay for. So really educating event promoters about the costs and the labor that goes into this, and everyone's been pretty receptive. So that has been very cool to see, and it's something I'm very hopeful about. So continuing on to the future, we have events coming up that we've been building up to and planning towards. So we have the Cannabis Expo, Agave Festival, the Pueblos de Maíz, which will be about 5,000 people right at the beginning of May. And I hope to be involved in those events, and then continuing on to be a part of making composting a part of Tucson's infrastructure in the next 7 years. Like every Tucsonan should be able to compost. I hope to work with another farm in central Tucson, Flowers and Bullets, to help them build out their composting systems, and increasing the capacity of live event composting, and really creating events in Tucson that are zero waste would be an amazing thing to see, and something I'm excited to be a part of. And being a part of my local food system that we hope to be local, secure, diverse, and minimize the waste that comes from it. I want to thank you to Bali and Jacob and Guru and Matt and everybody at Awareness Ranch for letting me be here and be a part of this beautiful operation they have going on, and to allow me to be a part of it. These are the resources that I use, great books. So thank you for your time. I really, this has been a wonderfully life-changing experience being a part of this, and a wonderful way to end my education at ASU and before I, and really has given me the opportunity to continue forward. So thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for listening.